Hey there, biz leaders. Before we get into this week's episode, I'd like to let you know that as we head into the new year, I want to make sure that this show is as valuable and enjoyable for you as possible. And in order to do that, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a few moments to fill out this year's audience listeners survey. Your feedback will help me improve the show and make it even better in the coming year. For those who fill out the survey, you will have the option to put yourself into a draw for a $25 Amazon gift card. So to access the survey, simply go to thebusinessleadership.com/survey 2022 or slide into the show notes below. Thank you so much in advance for your participation and support.
At one point, California did have a lot of manufacturing. Finding manufacturing leadership and people that can run a plant floor is a little more challenging because, those are skills that are no longer there. And most of those guys have retired.
You are listening to the Business Leadership Podcast with Edwin Frondozo.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're checking this out. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Business Leadership Podcast. On this episode, I had the opportunity to sit down with Chris Laudidio. He is the CEO, the founder of a multi-million-dollar company, Versa Products. He's been an innovator in American-made office furniture for nearly 20 years, based in Los Angeles. In our discussion, we talk about how it's essential of being able to pivot and adopt, especially when emotions are down and out. We're going to share how you show up and how it affects your team as the leader of the company. And we discuss what Google Studio is and how you can use it to your advantage. This episode is brought to you by Slingshot Communications, the business leader's preferred phone system. Without further ado, here we go. Welcome to the Business Leadership Podcast, Chris.
Hey, Edwin, thank you for having me.
The listeners on the podcast, we're always keen. Sometimes when it comes to the founder story, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that listen. There's a lot of executives as well. But you've built and amassed a pretty successful business, a pretty successful entrepreneurship career. Can you share some of those times and what you really did to keep going and maybe the mindset shifts that you had to go through?
Yeah. So I think I started out doing fitness equipment, more strength equipment. And I was about, a little before 2000 and would do like mail order. And it was, fitness is still a very competitive industry and strength equipment as well, because there's, it's not the most typical product to make. And, a lot of people can enter into it. But when I started out, it was a little challenging. We were doing magazine ads and it kind of had its ups and downs. And then, obviously everything's about marketing once you kind of get that going. But you have these rough patches in business all the time and, everybody's going to have these challenges. And we started out, started out with like $100, just trying to put something together. And it's pretty challenging. There's definitely times when you want to give up even when the company's doing well. But, when I started out, I had just came to California from Connecticut and I started trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then I was really challenged. I was trying to sell like a weightlifting kit, like just a bench and weights and like shipping that through like FedEx and UPS was like a disaster. And it was really challenging. And I was living on a boat in Marina Del Rey. And, I remember one time I was like really exhausted and I'm not really the type that gives up. I like driving forward. And I called my mom and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of doing this shit. I'm like, it's not working out. I think I want to come home. And then she says to me, she's like, God damn it. She goes, you're not coming home. She's like, what do you need? Like so disgusted, right? Not genuinely like, hey, your business didn't work out. I'm sorry. She's just like, you're not coming home. But I was like, okay, like that wasn't what I expected. And then she was like, hey, I'll help you out with your rent. How about that? And she was just, my mom was kind of a tough love and she still is, but it was kind of interesting. So that was like one point. That was about the only point really I said, hey, you want to throw in the towel? And that was kind of early on. And you have those moments. So, you got to work past them.
Well, I really love that. Thank you for sharing that. I love how your mother was just like basically saying, "You're not the son that I raised. What are you asking me?"
Yeah, she's from the
Like, basically,
Bronx,
that-
it's all about like, she just, it is funny.
that's amazing. That's a great story, and I guess that from that point on, I guess in terms of for you, just that point where you're like, I'm ready to give up, but your mom's like not even letting you give.
Yeah, I know.
Basically,
I
right? And
don't know what her plan was. Like, legitimately, she probably didn't want me in the house. And the first business I started, like, she was like, "Just get out, like, get all this stuff out of here." And I had some trucks, and I remember I destroyed the driveway trying to park my truck, my first business, in the driveway, and it was too heavy and sunk the driveway. My dad was furious, and I think they were like, "Okay, don't bring your shit show home here." So I don't know what it was.
no, that's great. That's great. So you started, leading this business when it comes to like fitness equipment. So tell me how you got to like, I guess, building more different furniture and getting into that space with Versa.
Yeah. So with Versa, obviously started in 2000, so that's the beginning of the internet. That's the beginning of computer and software and Microsoft and Apple. And I was doing fitness equipment, and I was having success with that. We were doing a multi-gym. We had our marketing down. And then, I really wanted to be part of that computer movement, but I didn't know how to program computers. I didn't understand how to make a computer. And I said, well, I'll make a table. And that was, looked more like a piece of fitness equipment at the time. But we got into it that way. And then as the internet was evolving, this is the ultimate medium to sell anything. And then it was back in the day, even when it was like not as, you didn't have as much graphics as you do now. And that was something that, I picked up on really early, and I figured out how to market it. And then just began with computer tables. I had like computertable.com, and I don't even know if I have this domain anymore still. I was able to get like some organic ranking. I started out on Yahoo stores. And that was the only platform really at the time. Otherwise, you had to write your own website. There was no Shopify. There was no commerce at the time. So that's kind of how I started out, but always listening to the customer. And, I'd do graphic images and put them up in magazine ads. And really, the magazine ad was what the internet is now, right? So we would run those ads and see if people were interested in the design or what we were doing. And we would just go from there and just listen to the customer. And, so I started out manufacturing because when I used to import my products from China at the time, be a lot of issues with that. Then came from, brought them from, we moved it to Mexico, and then it was the same challenges. And I said, I'm going to do this operation here in the United States. And that's how the manufacturing began.
That's amazing. And I love that how, some of the folks who may be listening is like, fail fast, get your MVP out there. And maybe they can appreciate you were doing it as well, but it was a bit a longer cycle, but it was the same framework. Yeah. Put an ad out there, sell something, listen to your customers, pivot. But really your story, Chris, is how you, even though you had the successful business already growing and you could scale within the fitness industry, you already was sniffing or recognizing, oh, there's something brewing on this side. How do I get into there, even though I'm not a tech entrepreneur? Talk to me how you got those influences. Was it from your current customers, or was just being where you were and listening to people around you?
I think listening to people, and, even today, we make more than office furniture, and we made, everything from mid-century furniture to makeup vanities. But, in general, watching the industry was really interesting, right? Because you have these big metal boxes with the CPU holder. And when we began, monitors were very heavy. The newer generation doesn't realize that, but it was a cathode rate. It was a tube, CRT. That's what they call them back in the day. That's true. And, we early on kind of got into working with the hospitals, and they had these big monitors that were extremely heavy. So we started making tables for them. But, there's a few innovative people out there that were doing like remote training at the time. And I ended up working with a company that was locally in California. We started to make some tables for them that helped cameras. And then you learn a little bit about each person's business. And we didn't really know where the computer industry was going to go. And they used to have these things called LAN racks. And they were basically a bunch of computers, and it was just a big, heavy shelf. And we made those for a while. And then that entire shelf that was, holding 13 computers or 12 or 14 computers, basically goes down to nothing now. It's one computer, it can do all of it. And it's funny because there's even a cart, I think, to this day on our website that has 2 CPU holders, like it holds 2 computers. And I was laughing because I was telling my team, like, you need to take that off, and the people still will run it, but it was called a crash cart. And basically it was 2 computers because you didn't run, you didn't run 2 programs at the same time. Like you can now run several programs. So
It's interesting, and the lessons there is always listening and working with those who are willing,
Yeah.
and to work with you as well. And you found some great niches, with the hospitals and very specific needs that were complementary to the rise of computers, right? Because this is something well beyond me, and I'm a computer engineer from the early 2000s too. So it's just like, oh wow, Chris, and his company, they had a good little niche here, bringing up and really growing that. So I'm really keen, as you were growing the manufacturing and your business here, what was some of the challenge as a leader that you had to overcome? Because I assume you were in the business a lot at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I am a hands-on leader. I like making things, and that's usually dragging me into the business on a regular basis. And I mean, as a leader, you always have to be developing. I think that you have so many challenges along the way, especially as being a leader. So take away the skill sets and all that running, even a small organization. And I think that, a lot of people don't realize that the mom and pops and even the restaurants, their challenges are just as grand as big companies. And, in big companies, they have more layers of structure and training and, SOPs on how they do things. So, those challenges always exist. And what was really interesting for us is that we were manufacturing, and we still do manufacture in California, in Los Angeles. So, one point California did have a lot of manufacturing, but it doesn't. And a lot of products are just imported in. So finding, manufacturing leadership and people that can run a plant floor, they can, run a bunch of welders and, people making things is a little more challenging because, those are skills that are not, no longer there. And most of those guys have retired. So those leadership guys have retired. And then typically the ones that are around, they're going to be with like an aerospace company getting paid a lot of money, And so those are the bigger challenges, is finding these people that have the skills to go ahead and run a CNC router or, program a laser. And at that time, it was more challenging for us.
Yeah, because I guess I assume if manufacturing was not so prevalent there's only just the small moms and pop CNC shops that are around, and
Yeah.
they may not have that leadership in-house. So how did you guys grow that leadership or that know-how? Was it from the ground up, or did you guys got to get out and really headhunt?
Yeah. So we did grow it from the ground up. I mean, early on when I was trying to learn how to manufacture, there is school, like there's great engineering schools like, USC and UCLA, Cal Poly, they have great programs, but, no one shows you how to make a product, right? No one's like, hey, here's the recipe. I mean, now you can go on YouTube and see just about how to make anything, but, at that time, there really wasn't anything. And a lot of times I was interviewing people and learning from those interviews, reading the resumes. And this is what, I tell any small business or even a developed business, right? Is that, run a good ad to bring in someone. And at certain times I would run the ad knowing that I didn't have the money to hire the person, but I wanted to, talk to them, learn, and then go, okay, this is the person I'm going to hire when, I can pay that salary. And this is one of the best ways to learn, in my opinion, because, each time you read a resume, you're seeing where they work, what they did, and providing they're, transparent and honest on their resume, you can learn a lot from what's happening just by reading that resume and then either, hey, getting on the phone or meeting them. And that was one of the ways we actually learned. And then as you, develop more, another place you learn is your suppliers. So your reps that bring you material, I used to not tell the supplier like what our brand name was because they're always talking. Like the rep will come in and be like, yeah, well, we sell to so-and-so over here and they did 1,000 units of this and they sold it to this one. And they're pretty much got like your entire business is out there, like gossip wise, but you learn a lot from them because they'll tell you like, hey, this is how our customer uses this material or they use this machine. So these are really great places for people to learn and develop their teams at any size company.
Hey there, biz leaders. Hope you're enjoying this episode. Before we get back, I'd like to let you know that as we head into the new year, I want to make sure that this show is as valuable and enjoyable for you as possible. And in order to do that, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a few moments to fill out this year's audience listeners survey. Your feedback will help me improve the show and make it even better in the coming year. For those who do take the time to fill out the survey, as a quick thank you, there will be an option to put yourself into a draw for a $25 Amazon gift card. I got 5 of these to give out. So to access the survey, simply go to thebusinessleadership.com/survey 2022 or slide into the show notes below. Thank you so much in advance for your participation and support. Yeah, I love the business intelligence and the resourcefulness as well, right? Because and you're right. I over 10 years ago, I did technical recruiting as well, and you really learn a lot about someone's skill set by talking with them.
Yeah.
Right. And if you understand business or the way you grow a business, you'd be like, oh, I understand where this person could actually fit within a team, and what makes them good is where they came from as well, and maybe some of the brands or the companies that they worked with as well. That's I love how you guys did that and really run ads to really understand yourselves inside out. I want to touch base, I guess, when it comes to I'm an engineer as well, but I learned that your organizations, you get interns from local colleges, to work in the factory and really to make a point, which I thought was really interesting because it reminded me when I was an engineer that you guys have 3 female engineers now, because when I was in engineering, and I think it's changed now, but at least in computer engineering 20 years ago, there was literally like 3 or 5 women in the whole the whole classroom. So I'd love you to share about how is that like and how it's changing your culture as well.
Well, amazing engineers, they're everywhere and you have to develop them, but it is a lot more exciting to have a lot more female engineers going in. They're going in, they're getting industrial engineering degrees, they're getting mechanical engineering degrees. And typically we always have maybe 3, maybe 4 female engineers, and their skill set is the same. It all depends, because what I do notice with like engineers is that, like accountants, they'll try to figure out where they want to be in a company or an industry. So, like accountants, like intern accountants will go work at the big 5, and then they'll figure out what they want to do, or they'll come to a company like ours and work for a while. And then they'll be like, yeah, I want to be, working in this type of industry. And it's the same thing with engineers, but, we have a lot of I'm working with an engineer right now and she's doing a great job and with design and, and I'll give the direction and hopefully they can come up with a little bit of design as well. And that's always exciting. But yeah, we've had some really great people come through the company and they even move on to do amazing things. And one of my engineers, which I absolutely still love, she's amazing. She went on to like building houses and she does phenomenally well doing that. She applied her skill there and does real estate with her husband and they're crushing it.
Yeah, it's always interesting to get new diverse people within the organization. It helps the culture grow. It helps get different skill sets or different knowledge, even for those who are in there, because internships come and go as well. One thing I want to mention, I wanted to ask you, Chris, that I read about. There's this program that basically you provide employees with transportation to and from work. It's basically an employee courtesy car. Can you tell me how you came up with that?
Yeah, so that was pretty much 2013 for about 3 or 4 years, and I had picked up a Prius. Toyota Prius. And basically the idea is that, this is one of the big challenges for people, right? When they have their car breaks down, it's a challenge. They're going to go drop the car off. And I was like, let's just have a company car. I talked to the insurance company. I'm like, hey, look. And then we had made it like with the company logo on it, and we had like branding on it. And it had said on it, this company courtesy car. And it was really effective because the idea was that anybody in the company, didn't matter whether they came from the office or the factory, they could go ahead and use this car for, 2 or 3 days or whatever they needed to go ahead and get their car fixed and get their transportation. It was a good program. It lasted a long time, and it was well used. And we had one person in our marketing department. It was a girl, and she was going to she's buying a car, and she was using it for a while, like 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And like the day before her new car came in, she totaled that one. And I was like, okay, I'm like, maybe it's the end of the program. And, I was like, all right, I think we made more money from the insurance company on it than what we paid for it. And I was like, okay, it was good. But I would do it again with a Tesla, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to me, and what I hear as well is it's one of those small company initiatives where you give this benefit, this perk that allows, the people in the organization to talk about their company, right? It's like, look at this car I got from Versa to use for a couple of days. Like, that's like people in LinkedIn posting like their welcome kit when they start somewhere, right?
Yeah,
but like
always good. Yeah.
Look what we do. We got a car to use. Like, we got the newest Tesla to use, right? I mean, that's a great initiative. Like it's something like I would encourage for sure for you guys to continue if it was something of value still, right?
Think about it. I mean, I think Teslas are hard to get right now, so maybe we'll put them on the list.
100%. I guess for me in the business leadership community, understanding where you came from, Chris, all the different challenges you had as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, as in growing. I'm curious if you could share what maybe some of the challenges or some of the things that you're personally working on to continually to grow as a business leader.
So as a business leader, I think no matter who you're looking at, you continually have to be learning. And, I'm going to do audiobooks like once a week. I'm going to do an audiobook. And then communication's key, right? Because as a leader, if your communication is not good, you can easily disengage your team members, and, you have times where they're watching your facial expressions and they're like, he said this. And you're like, well, I don't think I said that, but like your expression may have it. And, it doesn't, again, and it's not just a small business thing. It's like communication has to be on point every day. And, in a leader, especially in a smaller company or, managing a lot of people, they're watching your emotions, they're watching what's going on. And, a lot of times they're talking like, hey, if you're in a bad mood, we're in a bad mood, right? And they're already texting people and, other side of the building, he's in a bad mood, and all these things happen. But, what I think every leader should do is you constantly want to be working on your communication and being, conscientious of how you're coming across to your team members. And it's challenging. Some days you got, bombs going off and things happening and you go one right after another and you're, you got to really reach down and try to like keep your composure. And, these are things in smaller businesses too that do arise, but always looking for books and reading them.
Awesome. 100%. And I love how you have the goal of one audio book per week. So when are you listening to your audiobooks, by the way?
Right now I'm listening to the 12-week year. And I really like this because it's really saying, hey, don't annualize your goals and, really break it up into 12 weeks. So I'm halfway through that book. And I think that that's a good read for some of the people out there. It's basically compressing some of your goals and making them shorter and more visual for the team as well.
Oh, that's amazing. And when do you listen to them? Is it during your commute?
When I drive to work, yes. Back and forth to work.
That's the best time. Like you're definitely, you're doubling up on your productivity skill there for sure. Yeah, this has been great. Chris, are you able to share maybe ideally a final thought, observation, typically like some type of actionable recommendation you could share with maybe the growing business leader, the entrepreneur who's in the trenches right now, some piece of wisdom for us?
I think one of the things that I loved and still use, and we use extensively, is it's called Google Studio. And it's a free dashboard from Google that's extremely easy to use. And you can basically API out your data from either QuickBooks or from, as we use SAP. But this is a dashboard and you can build it out and make it whatever you want. You can put pictures up there. And this is a really good way for all business owners to, put a KPI up there for their team members so that people can track it. And it's called Google Studio. And basically what you want to do is figure out what's that goal that you want your team to focus on. And you can go ahead and create a scoreboard or a data sheet and put that up. Just buy a flat screen TV for $300, a 50-inch or whatever they have, and then put it up. And this is a really great way to keep your team engaged and everybody's on the same page.
That's a great tip. Google Studio. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, and obviously all the things that Chris and I have talking about, some resources. But I'm like, oh, why don't my team have this right now?
It's great. It's free because, the usually dashboards are like a $25,000 to $50,000 investment in software, and they make you jump
integration, everything,
contract. And, it might say it's in beta, but it's been in beta for 8 years and it still works. And, it definitely uses that.
Amazing.
Good one.
I love that. Chris, to close, can you let us know where we can find more information about you, your business, or anything else you want to share with us today?
So there's not too much information about me. You're getting the best of it right here today. But, Versa Desk is one of our brands, Versa Tables. Here's where you can see some of the products we make. And by all means, if somebody wants to, get me on LinkedIn or DM me or whatever, they're more than welcome to. And I'll help out where I can.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you for joining us on the Business Leadership Podcast today.
All right, Edwin. Thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed talking.
That's it, Biz Leaders. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Business Leadership Podcast. This was episode number 181 with Chris Laudadio. For more information about Chris, Versa, or any other resources that we shared, please go to thebusinessleadership.com/181 or simply click or slide into the show notes directly in the app that you're listening to now. And listen, if you haven't done so yet, please give the show a follow, leave a rating, and a short comment and review. It actually helps the show reach other biz leaders like you, and it wouldn't take more than 2 minutes. I would appreciate it. I'm grateful. And I do read the comments that you share, so thank you for those who have left it. This episode was brought to you by Slingshot Communication, the business leaders' preferred cloud phone service. What I really like about Slingshot is that I'm able to grow 100x by allowing the system in place to transform my business and my life. I have the ability to have a dedicated business SMS, and it's changed the game. I contact my clients via text messaging, like I'm sure like all of you, but during off hours, I turn off the app so I could be present with my family, my friends, and my colleagues. To learn more, please go to thebusinessleadership.com/SMS. Until next time, thank you, do your best, and have a 100x day.
Thank you for listening to the Business Leadership Podcast with Edwin Frondozo.
Hey there, biz leaders. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I want to hear from you. I'd like to make this show as valuable and enjoyable for you as possible. And in order to do that, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a few moments to fill out this year's audience listeners survey. Your feedback will help me improve the show and make it even better in the coming year. For those who do take the time to fill out the survey, as a quick thank you, there will be an option to put yourself into a draw for a $25 Amazon gift card. I got 5 of these to give out. So to access the survey, simply go to thebusinessleadership.com/survey2022 or slide into the show notes below. Thank you so much in advance for your participation and support.